this is a funny one because, as you probably know, I've been on the other side of the glass for a long time in the music business, as a songwriter and record producer for 30 years now, bringing on new artists, developing, working with, thankfully established artists, and I've had an incredible career working with some of my idols. All of a sudden, it was actually my 50th birthday party, which I was doing for charity. And I invited a bunch of artists from my career, and we had Heather Small and Alfie Bow and S Club and the Take That Boys came, because of course my first number one was Everything Changes with Take That. So Gary, as a result, is one of my closest friends and probably closest collaborator. So after the gig, he called me and said, "El, you need to make an album." And I just said, what, you must be crazy. And he said, no, El, listen, he says, I've done these gigs for you, because poor old Gaz, I drag him out to all these charity events that I do, because it means we can earn more money. And I drag him out to these things. And he said, El, I do these things for you. You sell them out all the time. He says, you perform, people know you. It's not like people don't know who you are. He says, all our fan base know who you are. He says, you need to make an album for them. I thought it was high. So I just ignored it. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, they were on tour, and I went to see the boys at the Sheffield Arena. And I got there, and he'd arranged for me to meet an agent. He came in the room. I said to him, what is up with you? And he went, El, I'm not letting it go, lad. He says, you need to make an album. He says, you should tour it. I just thought he was insane. I sat and listened to him, and anyway, of course, then what happens is this crazy year we've been in. And he said to me, El, what else are you doing? What's your excuse for not making a record? Why wouldn't you want to make a record? So, do you know what? If there was ever a time, it would be now. Because obviously what this year has done to all of us is given us pause to be a little bit more self-reflective and work out, do you know what I mean? Sort of replenish our list of values and establish what's important to us and all these kind of things. So it's been quite a natural, almost cathartic exercise of getting back to, well, why was I was ever into music? I've loved being a songwriter and a producer and being on this side of the glass, if you like. But and made the decision a long time ago not to want to be an artist. I was always a singer, and that certainly helped me in terms of working with, especially young, inexperienced artists. But I never had that. I just don't have that bit of my DNA that I want to go and, you know what I mean, be famous or whatever. So it's always a sort of weird disconnect for me. But in this instance, no one's got that opportunity. We're all sort of in the same boat, in terms of promo. It's all online. There's no gigs. I thought, well, it makes it all much more about the music than it is about celebrity or whatever, which I detest. So it's come down to, okay, this is probably, we're almost back to maybe the 40s and 50s almost, in the approach that radio is king again, and YouTube and the way people acquire music is different now. So perhaps you've got this, everyone has this tool set available to them, this toolbox of opportunities, with social media and stuff. And I'm not particularly good at this stuff, so I have to literally start a Twitter account and an Instagram account. I've got this iPhone, and I never take photos of anything, So if I want a phone that allows me to get, email, or I had a BlackBerry back in the day. It was perfect. I didn't need to take photos. Anyway, here we are in this world of everyone taking photographs of everything. So I've had to sort of re-educate myself in social media, start these accounts, and realise how much high maintenance it is to maintain them, and keep people, the information flowing. And it's a paradigm shift for me. That's probably sums it up. Because I've gone from being this guy who sits and writes songs and records these artists, and then sort of just pushes them out into the world and lets those people do all that stuff, promotion and all that kind of thing. So I've had this steep learning curve of having to go into the lion's mouth myself now, made an album. All right, well, I've got to then at least let people know about it. But if I'm going to let people know about it, I'm going to have to perhaps perform it online. And one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden, the funny thing is, and this is the difference between me and Gaz, this is my dividing line. I actually ring Gaz, I did not long ago, and laughed at him and said, I still can't believe you're having to piss about with your hair. That's the funniest part of this for me. And he's like, Elf, don't even start. You know? It's like, that's the dividing line. If I had to go out and promote this thing and take a can of hairspray with me, I might not turn up. Is the honest truth. So I'm using this situation we're all in to my benefit as much as possible, and sort of basically letting the music do the job. And it's so far so good. People are connecting with it, you know, just basically being a singer and a songwriter and making a record. When I started making it, I've had to sort of go back and learn a lot of my own lessons, if you like, what I teach young artists. And that is, an artist, first of all, makes an album for themselves. They don't make it for radio, they don't make it for that particular audience. They're making for themselves. It's an honest statement. And that word honest is an absolute, you know, in capitals. So if you're going to write an album, make it about who you are. Be really honest about it, which is why When Love Breaks Down is about my divorce. You know, it's a painful subject. All of the songs on this album are snapshots of experiences I've been through, because, you know, I'm a normal bloke, and anyone else is likely to have experienced this as well. And that's what connects us. And the sad thing about being human beings is we tend to only learn anything through pain. And we have a moment to take stock and sort of reevaluate ourselves in those times, just like we are at the moment. So we make decisions, we make, you know, value judgments when we're at our most painful, I think. When we're having a good time, we don't learn anything. We're too busy having a good time. So it's moments like this where you kind of start seeing what's really important. And that's either an opportunity to grow and use that energy as a way of tempering you for something ahead of you, or you put it in the shadows and it becomes a bit of an enemy and becomes a problem and a psychosis, if you like. So I'm one of those people that decides to face things out and deal with them as much as I can, you know, rather than be building up to be a problem. So, you know, as a songwriter, I have an opportunity and an ability to sort of use this energy cathartically and, you know, express it in a form that other people hopefully will resonate with. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. That I've always said is that music, unlike any other medium, is a backstage pass to your soul. It gets in. I mean, if you think about what you just said there, that when you're in a cinema, you're in a dark room, you can't help but just be absorbed by it. You forget everything that's bothering you. You're just in that moment, right? When you're in a gig, the same thing. When you're in an art gallery, it's to a lesser degree because you're a little bit more aware of your environment, but you can still get lost in the creation. Do you know what I mean? Some people feel the same way about architecture. Some people feel the same way about ballet. What it is, and what the act of creation is able to do, is transport you, take you out of your life, and push you somewhere else that's a little bit more thought-provoking, a little bit more meditative, if you like. I think it's the same reason why people like looking at fireplaces or looking at the ocean. You know, it sort of takes you away from where you are. But music has a very special ability like that, because not only does it get in and move you away from your thoughts, but it can actually evoke emotions much more powerful than any other medium. You know, you can listen to a song and at the right time, bang, it'll just make you cry. You know, and you might have heard that song 100 times before, but on that particular day, it aligns with whatever it is that's going on in your life. And we think that song was written for us. And in a way, it probably was. I think that's the magical thing about this. You know, that I've written songs and people say to me, oh, God, that song you wrote about so-and-so, that got me through whatever. And you think, wow, it wasn't about that at all. But maybe it was. maybe that's why we wrote it, you know, for that moment. And I always go back to, this is sort of sounds philosophical, but in all these instances, you'll look for wisdom everywhere. And I remember there's a passage by Ralph Waldo Emerson that talks about success, about how success should be measured. And he said, if one person breathes easier because you've lived, then you've succeeded. And if you use that as your starting point, all you're going to do is help people more. Do you know what I mean? So if you write a song and 10 years down the road it makes someone get through a tough time, what a result. What an amazing result as a human being. So it makes you reevaluate things differently. Music has a very, very special gift that way. At the moment, I'm writing a musical. I don't know if you're aware, Gary and I had a Broadway hit with a musical, Finding Neverland, which we actually hope to bring to the UK at the end of this year or maybe early next year. And it was a fantastic experience, a whole new learning curve for both of us. So we got the bug a bit. I've been writing a new musical for the last sort of year and a half, 2 years. And it's now coming to the point where I'm ready to start thinking about presenting it. So it's been a real creative draw for me. But what I've learned to do is do whatever I feel like doing that is honest. Because the moment you start doing something for the wrong reasons, it really falls apart really quickly. Because you can't sustain it. Do you know what I mean? It's like behave in a certain way with people. If you spend enough time with those, that behaviour, that mask is going to slip. So you may as well just be honest all the time. So if I, you know, sometimes I was asked the other day by Brian Adams if I wanted to do something for a film, and I watched the clip of the film and it just didn't move me at all. And I was like, yeah, do you know what? I could knock something together for this, but it doesn't. This is not the motivation. It can't be the motivation. It's got to be, wow, this is a statement. And it's nothing to do with money. It's nothing to do with, you know, well, people. If I'm not motivated by it, if there's no honesty in it for me, I just can't do it. It feels almost like a prostitution. Do you know what I mean? There's one thing I do know. It's what connects us as humans in the same way with that song that you've just mentioned, I Have Lived. It's the honesty in it. It was written by Ryan Tedder, I'm sure.
It was, yes.
Was it written by Ryan? That there's an honest statement. And the reason why he wrote it is because he needed to express that. He needed to get it out of himself. And he's got the ability as a talented songwriter to do that in a way that is going to get to you and connect with you. So, you know, if that was facile and just made up out of no energy, it wouldn't have the effect on you that it has had. I can tell you the reason why it connects with you is because it was written with honesty. That there's actual real life energy in that statement. And these are the songs that connect us. These are the songs that become the soundtrack of our lives because they've got real energy in them, real stuff that resonates with us, that evokes the same kind of emotion. So it does, you know, all I can do right now is do whatever feels real and honest. And I turn down more than I do. You know, it's not a time thing. I could do a lot more, I'm sure, if I wanted to do that. But what I'm doing, I feel really good about. So do I make another album? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. You know, I think a lot of this is to do with if people like it and want me to do another one, perhaps I will. But it'd have to be on the basis that it's real. You know, I made an album called Mind Music, which I released last year. And it's a whole collection of sort of meditative relaxation pieces. Very melodic and orchestrated and all that kind of stuff. I spent a long time doing it. But I did it as a cathartic exercise for myself, you know, as a way of beating anxiety and stress. I'd just come down, my studio's at home, so I work from home, and just see where my hands fell on the piano and took it from there. And all of a sudden I ended up with this album of material that I've released and made available and on the basis that, look, this helped me get through a stressful time. And I've got beautiful stories of how it's helping people sleep and, you know, get rid of stress. They put the album on and boom, they're off to sleep within. And that, you know, it's not that it's so boring that they're asleep within 10 minutes. It's just that it helps people kind of transport you off. away from your anxiety, away from the things that are stressing you. So that, I think, I'm in the process of making another one of those, that volume 2 of my music. That I'll definitely do this year. The musical is so exciting to me. I'm really geared up about it. But at the same time, you know, we've just had a hit with Dame Shirley Bassey, you know, and that was a pretty spontaneous thing. So it just comes down to whatever's real is what excites me. We did a live stream just when I released the first single, My Destiny, was just prior to this current lockdown. So we did it in a controlled environment. Everyone had masks on. We were socially distanced, and I managed to get my whole band in this huge recording room. And we did a live stream of it, which was great. We had 15,000 people watching it, which was lovely. And that was a great tool to help promote the release of the single. The problem we've got now, of course, is that we're now restricted. So in my work bubble is me and my sort of right-hand man, Jim, who's an incredible piano player. So I've just been thinking, the album comes out on Sunday the 21st. So I think on that day, I'm going to do a live stream from home, just me and Jim, you know, so acoustic live stream. We'll play some of the songs on the album and some of my old hits, and talk people through the album a little bit. So I'm planning on doing that, which is going to be a fun thing to do, and we'll just literally do it from home and see how it goes. On how it's come about, back in the 90s, I was a bit more of a hired gun. You know, an artist was making an album, the A&R guy would call to say, look, we haven't got a single yet, I need the first single or whatever. And I would then it was my sort of responsibility, or as I've always seen it this way, is that as my responsibility to sort of get in the head of the artist a bit. So I would tend to want to meet them, if possible, before, and just sort of spend a bit of time as being a human being, you know, and try and pick up on their vocabulary and what's important to them, what resonates with them. Because I think, you know, the job of the songwriter is not really to sound like me at all, which is one of the things I've been the most proudest of, is that if you look at my track record, where, you know, I was able to go from Spice Girls to Bryan Adams to Celine Dion in the same period of time. And that's because it was never about me. I've never had that ego thing where I have to make it about my sound. I never wanted to be that guy that did that thing. Do you know what I mean? So I just thought, as a songwriter, you should be able to sort of get into different things. I've had this lifelong love affair with music. So I can go from Vivaldi to Slipknot in the same week. You know what I mean? Because I recognise the beauty in all of it if it's been done honestly and it has real energy in it. You can feel it. You know, whether it's Nine Inch Nails and Trent Reznor, or whether it's you know, Celine Dion, you can hear the honesty in all of it. So the style of music shouldn't be relevant. You should be, if you really are what you call yourself, a songwriter and a musician. Our job is to serve the song. Do you know what I mean? It's to serve music, not ourselves. So you have an ability to listen and absorb who the artist is, and then adapt it to them. So sometimes it was like that, and I would really do my homework on who the artist was, and then sometimes, you know, it's like you're working with the artist, like with Bryan Adams, you want to co-write, or Gary Barlow, and that works much more organically. You're in the room with them. In the instance with Dame Shirley Bassey, we actually wrote a song that was a Me Too song. It was a pro-empowering women song. And we obviously wrote a song like that, wanted a powerful female vocalist. It just so happened she was making an album. We pitched it, she loved it, and boom, we have a hit record. So sometimes it happens very much like that, and that's also organically, but it's because it was honest. You know, I have an experience in the Me Too movement because I worked with Harvey Weinstein, you know, on films and things. So I was in the lion's mouth in that instance, and wanted to write a song that empowered women, that showed that this is a really important paradigm shift for humanity. You know, in the same way that is happening with Black Lives Matter, that these things are often a painful process, like the suffragette movement was. These things need to change, and this is how we change them. These are my origins. These are the reasons why I do what I do. So that was a statement for me, if you like, from a song point of view. It just so happened it resonated with Dave Shirley, and she recorded and did a brilliant job. So it changes depending on the situation. But again, I try to make it as organic as possible, even if I'm just hired to do the job. The hardest ones are when you know the requirement is to be absolutely honest. Because as much as we all strive to do that, if you think about any given situation you could be put in, if the requirement for you to do what you do is to be honest, you immediately go inwards and go, "Oh, hold on, okay, I've got to sort of reveal myself here." So songs like "Let's Talk About Love" by Celine Dion was her brief was that she wanted an honest, universal love song that she could sing in any language that people would understand. And you kind of go, wow, okay, that's vague, but also far-reaching. So it meant that I had to sort of put myself in a space almost poetically, so I was approaching it a little bit more like a poem, with, like a sonnet, if you like, with real honesty in it, about what love means to the individual, to me in particular, and maybe that would resonate with her. So that was a difficult one. It ended up being the title of the album. She started the tour with it at a children's choir. So clearly, it's a statement for her, and that was a good reason for it to be difficult. The most difficult one was probably the best song I've written, which is "Never Gonna Break My Faith" for Aretha Franklin. It won a Grammy. We had a nomination for a Golden Globe, but it was sung by Aretha Franklin, and as a result, it's now become a theme for Black Lives Matter, which is just, it was written about the day Bobby Kennedy was killed. It was written for the movie Bobby, and the question was, who lost the most as a result of Bobby Kennedy being killed, other than his family, of course, and people who knew and loved him. But African Americans lost the most, is the reality, because he was, at that time, the hope for the civil rights movement. His brother JFK, Dr. King, was the next one. We lost them both, and then Robert Kennedy was going to be the next president. He won the California primary. It was going to happen. And he was taken out by Saran in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel. So that's what the movie's about. So it was about writing a song to represent the what does it do? What does it do when you put all the faith in something and it's snatched away from you? And so the song's called "Never Gonna Break My Faith" because that's what it comes down to. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what you throw at me. We've got to carry on. If there's one thing that Dr. King taught us all, is that everything that we experience here is just human. It's humans doing this to other humans. You can rise above that by not letting it eat at your faith. That you can strive to be better. You can anticipate and manifest a better future. It's painful. It's a long, drawn-out process, but it can happen. So to have written a song with that kind of energy and that kind of power took everything I'd got. It took me to be incredibly honest about my understanding of what faith is. I'm not a religious person at all, but I have a particularly, acute view of where I am in the universe. I think I understand what's going on from a physics point of view and how that works on my soul and all the rest of it. I've tried to absorb as much information as possible. So writing that was incredibly tough because it meant I had to get really down and dirty with my own understanding of my life and my place in it all. So that one was tough, but you know what? It went on to succeed the most. Having that kind of voice, go and win a Grammy with it. There's a poem by Rabindranath Tagore that says, for years I've been stringing and unstringing my instrument, but the song I came to play is still unplayed. And that's a bit like my life as a songwriter. The song you come to write, you haven't written yet. But I'll be honest, when we wrote that, and it went out into the world with that incredible voice, possibly the best voice that ever existed, I remember holding my hands up and going, okay, I'm done. This is what I came to do. I'm ready. And at that point, things changed for me. It was like, okay, anything else is a bit of a bonus here. This is the one I came to write. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll write it tomorrow. Who knows? X Factor as the artist development producer. It's not as particularly in terms of songwriting or creative. I've never really been inspired to write for artists from talent shows. The reason being is that as good as some of them are, and I actually worked and lived in the house, in the X Factor house with all the artists. So that was much easier. But again, what I look for all the time is honesty. I look for that integrity in it all. And it's very difficult in a situation like that. That's not to demean the artists on these shows, but I do know how they're driven. They're driven by production and shiny colour television and all the rest of it. So it's difficult to call that, integrity when it's actually manufactured to that level. But working on X Factor was an absolute joy. I did it with Gary when Gary was a judge, and the reason why I was hired is because a band had never won, and I understood why a band wasn't winning X Factor. I had a theory, and I told that the producers, and they hired me anyway. The winner that year was Little Mix. They were my band in that year. So I think that there are things, if you can identify, if you're in touch with how these things work, you can really play a part in it from the inside. So I really, really enjoyed that process of working on X Factor because I was working with the artists. That's what I've done all my life, working with young artists and that raw energy and that excitement. And that was the thrill. I really, really enjoyed that experience. I don't think I'd do it again because I felt like I achieved what I wanted to achieve with that. But I've never really been inspired to then write material for artists because it feels almost like cabaret, like doing a cover version. Do you know what I mean? Rather than it being particularly written for them. Whereas when I've written for artists like S Club 7 or whatever, I spent quality time with them. It was like we had 6 weeks together before we started writing those songs. And that was just writing songs to see what inspired them and getting their impression. They've got 7 kids, and what do you want to do? I said to them one day, and they looked at me like, does that matter? I said, yeah, this is your statement. You're going to have to sing this 150 times in the promotion of it all. You've got to feel like it belongs to you. And then we wrote Bring It All Back, which was their theme, it became their thing. So, instances like that mean something to me. It's very difficult to do it when there's no history or no sort of time element to it. I think that what's happened is the way we acquired music back in the day, radio or word of mouth, or we're influenced by what our peers were into, or we're influenced by what our friends were into, or even family or parents or whatever, was much more organic and much more emotional driven. So, I don't know about what your life was like, but we had nothing. My mum and dad were poor and working class. We had very little, we were doing well. I knew we were doing well if we came home and the pop man had come and there was like fizzy pop in the fridge. You know what I mean? That's the level that we were at. So the way we acquired music wasn't a financial decision at all. It was an emotional decision because I'd save up as much pocket money as I could to get £8 together. So if I could go and buy an album or buy a single a week, you only had one option. I can only afford one single. So it was an emotionally driven decision that, about what you were in love with, what meant something to you. So you'd acquire, so that your record collection came to go together over a period of time, and it was a set of emotional decisions. And as a result, and I think this is proven in this way, that when things went from record to CD, what did people do? They bought their record collection on CD. They didn't buy new CDs. They went back and replaced the soundtrack of their lives on this new format so they can continue celebrating it. And then what happened when iTunes came along and iPods? They reacquired everything as MP3s. So again, they could celebrate the soundtrack of their lives walking around on the bus or whatever they were doing. And the same thing happens now with Spotify. The first thing people do on Spotify is go back and listen to older music. They go back and re-celebrate the soundtrack of their lives again. It's very seldom they play new music on it. They do in the matter of process. They've heard something on the radio. But what they play the most is the stuff that actually makes them who they are, that actually reminds them of who they are. And I think that that's the thing, the shifting change. So I think that kids nowadays are acquiring music that doesn't require them to be as emotional about what they choose. So as a result, there's this enormous, what would be the right word? Uncurated, that's the right word. And a mass of uncurated music that you can just literally stumble upon. And I quite enjoy that Spotify engine that plays you new things that thinks you might like them. Oh, I've discovered so many brilliant new artists just by letting it carry on playing. I put a playlist together of stuff that I like, and all of a sudden I'm in the car and like, oh my God, what is this? This is brilliant. So that engine that they've designed, that algorithm, is very, very clever, I think, in that it gives you what it thinks you're going to like, and invariably it's the case. So I think that the one thing we've lost is that emotional attachment to music that we used to have, which is why, of course, nostalgia tours are so successful. Do you know what I mean? Those, it's the reason why Take That is still so successful, because the audience is the fan base they had when they were kids. They're all now grown-up mums and dads and still celebrating, even though they love the new music, but they love it because of the emotional attachment they had to it originally, because of the decisions to make that album, buy that album was not a financial decision, it was an emotional decision. And I think if the music industry is going to survive and continue to grow, it needs to focus on reattaching emotion to the way we acquire music. There's nothing more real and painful as an experience. They're not easy things to do. They're not easy songs to write. If we all had to just write songs about fun stuff, that's easy. That you can write those songs all day long. But I think that if you what you want to try to do is express yourself or give people an opportunity to see who you are as a human being, what you really want to do is connect with them. And the best way of doing that, the best way of making friends, is to make yourself vulnerable, because you learn very quickly if you can trust someone, because people might use that as an example. They might take advantage of it. Well, you know not to trust that. But the people that warm to you, that respond to honesty, that are inspired by it, they're the people that you want in your life. And, we go through these changes throughout periods of our lives, and our circles of friends change because of the way that they respond to the way you are as a human being. Some people might turn on you and you go, well, that was inevitable. That was always going to happen, because they're using what you've given them against you. I think that as human beings, we have that weird tendency, but I've just learned, if I want people to sort of look at me as an honest person, I just want to be honest. You just have to be balls out honest, and writing about things like that, about divorce, about painful process you've been through. Like I say, you can choose to take these times and hide them in the shadows, or you can bring them to the forefront and use them as your ally and learn from them. Hopefully you learn for the better and don't repeat your errors. And a lot of that comes down to accepting failure, accepting that you did something wrong. And divorces, there's no better opportunity than divorce to do that. To go, God, I thought I was going to be good at this, and it failed. So I have to take 50% responsibility. So it gives you an opportunity to fess up, to man up, be honest, and express it in a way that is just the way it is. If people want to use that against me, go ahead and do it, but you don't get to play a part in my life as a result. If you take it and it inspires you, people might be going through a divorce and they listen to that and go, wow, there is a way through this. Then beautiful, job done. So it all comes down to that for me, my career. It's not your job to write a song. It's not your job to go up and sing on stage or dance or whatever. That's a given. People are coming for that talent. Your actual job is to convey emotion. to transfer emotion, to make people feel differently when they go out than when they came in. If you can do that, that's what artists do. Whether it's if you've gone into a gallery and you come out of a gallery feeling transported, the artist has done his job. That painting has moved you. An architect can do that. A choreographer can do that in a ballet. That's what songwriters do. That's what artists do. They transfer emotion to you. They're able to make you feel differently than when you did when you came in. That I think is the special part of being a musician. You know, that's never really been in my DNA to want to do that. I love, like I say, those sort of intimate gigs that I do where might be 200 or 300 people and you sit and tell stories and have it feels like you're in someone's living room and everyone's involved in it. You know, anyone can get involved. And I've done Sheffield City Hall was 2,500 people, but I try to make it feel like a living room. Do you know what I mean? Even though you've got a lot of people in balconies and all the rest of it, it's really important to me to bring it down and make it feel intimate. So I can't wait to do it, because making an album is like standing naked in front of a photographer. I've got no hiding place in this album. It's all out there. Every song on that record has a part of my life in it. So, you know, to go the whole hog and be able to stand on stage and sing those songs is going to be finishing that process to me. It's only half done by making the album. So I can't wait to go out and do that. And of course, I get to sing some of the hits that everyone knows that's part of the soundtrack of their lives. So, you know, in all kinds of ways, I get away with murder because I've got a few songs that get me there already, you know. And I can just go and just have fun. And the funny thing is, anytime I do one of these gigs, people always say to me, "Are you not nervous?" And I go, "No, because it's not what I do. You know, I get away with it because this is not my day job. I can go out and thankfully I can sing, thankfully I can play, but because it's not what I do for a living, if you like, or my existence doesn't rely on it. I get to just go and have a good time and be honest. I think people sense that. I think that's what people get into. And I think now more than ever, you know, the fundamental thing before you add anything complex, people want to be inspired. That's the base level. People want to be inspired. I'm going to make Mind Music Volume 2, which I'm a couple of tracks into already, which is the meditative relaxation thing. I really love doing that. I'm going to finish this new musical. I'm about 10 songs in at the moment. I probably need to write another 10 to eventually get to about 16 songs that will form the musical. So there's a bit of work ahead there. And then I'm working on some fun things with Gary, you know, that's music related, film and stuff like that. So that's exciting. That's a new challenge ahead of us. And then every now and again will call me on a daily basis, "El, fancy writing for this?" And, you know, we talk every day. We're always coming up with crazy ideas and things to get into. Brian Adams will call, "I'm thinking about doing an album. Have a think about this, you know, maybe more Led Zeppelin or whatever." And again, it's like, oh, wow, okay. And means I have to sort of push myself somewhere else. So I can tell you this, whatever it's going to be real and from a place of honesty, because that's the only thing I'm interested in nowadays. I think that I would trust the Spotify algorithm. If people haven't tried this, put a playlist of things that you like together. And when it gets to the end of the playlist, let the engine carry on playing your songs. It will just go on. It will go on and on and keep playing things. And it will throw in new things that it thinks, because the algorithm is so clever, it takes into consideration a certain kind of artist, a category, you know, all these things are now sort of data points. Tempo, emotion, all of these things are now sort of computerized, and the system will play you a bunch of new music you would have never come across. You know, and I'm guilty of this, and I have this absolute ongoing love affair with music. So if I'm guilty of not putting myself out to listen to new music. Everyone is. So I think that these engines have been designed to help you access new music. So I would urge people to do that. The other thing is this: put yourself out of your comfort zone where music is concerned, and listen to things that you might not naturally go to. And one of the things I try to do with this radio show is remind people that even though what you think you love is this, check this out. And people go, oh my God, I forgot how much I love this, or I remember this, and and it sort of evokes all kinds of emotions then. So my advice is just hold your hands out, close your eyes, and fall backwards into as much music. It's not going to let you hit the ground, it's not going to hurt you. Absorb as much as you can, because I tell you what, there's beauty in all of it.